Good morning, everyone. My name is Carolyn Hart Bennett. Today I'm going to read chapter 44 from Seven Sisters, the Trek. The Saints lingered for a long time after the meeting was over, hugging and sharing smiles and tears. Everyone was happy that they were arriving at their destination tomorrow, but sad to say goodbye to so many of their wonderful pioneer friends. After almost an hour of farewells, the sisters retired to their tent to get ready for bed. "Do you realize, sisters," said Eleanor, brushing her hair, "that this is the last time we will be sleeping on the ground in a tent?" "I don't want to contradict you," said Susanna, "but the twins and I still have to travel up to Cache Valley, where our mother and big brother have settled. There will be a few more nights on the ground for us." "Yes, but what I meant to say was that it will be the last time the seven sisters will be sleeping together on the ground in the same tent." This brought a moment of silent contemplation for all the sisters and caused Lavinia to say what the others were thinking. "Oh, I just wish we could all live in Salt Lake City so we could see each other every day." "Wouldn't that be wonderful?" said Aunt Lucy. "But Captain MacArthur said the prophet might assign us to go and build up another area or town in the territory, and we should be willing to obey. There are towns being established all along the Rocky Mountains, even up into Canada and south into Mexico." "We can always write to each other," suggested Susanna. "Yes," said Eleanor. "I like the idea of sending letters so we can keep abreast of everyone's lives." "I know what let's do," said Caroline. "I'll start a letter and send it to one of you, and you add a letter about what you've been doing and send it on to the next sister. Then, when it goes all the way around, you can take out your old letter and add a new one. That way, we'll all be able to read what each other is doing, and it can just keep going around and around." "I wish we could somehow include Lizzie in our round robin," said Lavinia. "She said she'd come to Salt Lake City when Alfie struck it rich in San Francisco, but that might never happen." Maybe we could send a letter in care of the postmaster in San Francisco with her and Alfie's name on it." "Just take a chance," said Caroline. "Who knows, we might get lucky and make contact somehow." "And there's one more person I think we should keep in touch with, even though she isn't officially one of the seven sisters," said Eleanor. "And that's Jane. I've grown to love her so much I can't bear not knowing about her family, especially little Lanny." "Definitely," said Lavinia. "Do you know where she will be living?" "She told me she and Hugh and her father and brother have some relatives in a small settlement up in Idaho Territory called Robin." Fanny started to cry. "I'm already getting sad at the thought of not seeing all of you every day." "Me too," blubbered Phoebe. "You've all been so good to help Susanna tend us on this journey, and you've treated us just like your real sisters." "I feel like you've taught us by your examples how Latter-day Saint women should act," said Fanny. "Yes," said Phoebe. "We want to be just like all of you when we grow up." "Oh, twinsies, that is the sweetest thing I've ever heard you say," said Susanna, giving them each a hug. She was feeling very proud of the twins for saying such mature things. Maybe they had learned something on their journey after all that would help them grow into fine young women and eventually wonderful wives and mothers. The sisters all loved the twins and couldn't wait to see how they would turn out in their new life in Cache Valley. They just knew they would be the ringleaders of lots of fun wherever they went, and this would translate into being great leaders in their families and in their church callings. As they all got ready for bed, Caroline dragged her satchel to the center of the circle. "Sisters, as you know, I've been lugging these Wedgwood dishes that Nan gave me almost halfway around the world, from London to Salt Lake City." "Yes," they nodded in wonder. "Nan said if she couldn't go to Zion, she wanted her Wedgwood to go." "Yes, yes. She gave me her dishes so I would remember her." "Well, I've decided I want to give each one of you something to remember me by." "You don't have to do that," said Eleanor. "Yes, but I want to. Nan gave me 8 dinner plates, 8 teacups, 8 saucers, and since I don't drink tea anymore, what use do I have for teacups? I want each one of you to have a teacup and a saucer to display on your shelf somewhere in your new homes, so you will remember both me and England." This brought tears to everyone's eyes. Caroline carefully felt around inside the bag until she came out with a wrapped cup and saucer and handed one to Eleanor. She repeated this until each sister had their own package. "I'll keep one for myself, too," she said, "and the 8th one, I think, should go to Jane." "Yes, please give it to Jane," they agreed. "Thank you so much," said Lavinia, who had unwrapped her cup and saucer and was inspecting the intricate little white designs on the deep blue pieces. "They are just exquisite. It's truly a miracle they made it all the way across the ocean, overland by steamer and rail, and across the plains without one piece being broken," said Aunt Lucy. "Yes, it represents us in a way," said Caroline, smiling. "We all came 5,000 miles to Zion, and none of us got broken either." The sisters laughed. They had had so much fun together. They couldn't imagine life without each other, but it was going to be a very sad fact after tomorrow. "Aren't we blessed to have our memories?" said Eleanor. Aunt Lucy agreed. "And we've all received a spiritual education on this journey that you couldn't buy for any amount of money. The sisters started to recall memory after memory of the good times, bad times, sad times, tragic times, scary times, hard times, thrilling times, hungry times, funny times, embarrassing times, and spiritual times they had been through on their journey. They laughed and shed tears and reveled in their experiences. After they were all talked out and ready to go to sleep, Fanny begged Lavinia, "Sing us one last song, please." "What would you like me to sing?" "You choose," suggested Phoebe. "All right, I'll choose one of my favorites." The sisters got settled under their quilts with their heads together one last time, and Lavinia sang softly, "I stand all amazed at the love Jesus offers me, confused at the grace that so fully he proffers me. I tremble to know that for me he was crucified, that for me a sinner he suffered, he bled and died. Oh, it is wonderful that he should care for me enough to die for me. Oh, it is wonderful, wonderful to me. I marvel that he would descend from his throne divine to rescue a soul so rebellious and proud as mine, that he should extend his great love unto such as I, sufficient to own, to redeem, and to justify. Oh, it is wonderful that he should care for me enough to die for me. Oh, it is wonderful, wonderful to me." Lavinia finished with her eyes closed, holding the last note until she ran out of breath. When she opened her eyes, she saw that all her sisters were asleep, except Aunt Lucy. "That was just beautiful, Lavinia," Lucy whispered. "Thank you, Aunt Lucy. It has been such a blessing to be able to sing on this journey." Lucy yawned. "We've got an exciting day tomorrow." They both snuggled down in their quilts. A few minutes later, there was a sound at the tent door. "Sister Wise, Sister Whittier, I need to speak to you," came a voice. Aunt Lucy looked around. She was the only one awake, so she got up and quietly went to the door. "Who is it?" she called softly. "It's Sister Dibble." Aunt Lucy stepped outside to find Sister Dibble standing there, wrapped in a blanket and carrying a candle. "My husband is really bad," she said, with tears in her voice. Aunt Lucy looked back at her sleeping sisters. "Sister Wise is asleep, but I'll come and see what I can do for him." "Thank you so much," she said humbly. Lucy grabbed her shawl and went to the wagon to get the small satchel she used for her nursing rounds. Then she followed Sister Dibble and her candle down the line of tents. Once inside, Lucy knelt down beside Brother Dibble, who was muttering incoherently and moving around in his bedding. "Brother Dibble, I'm here. Sister Whittier is here." She felt his forehead. It was burning. She and Eleanor had visited him early last week and suspected mountain fever when they saw a rash on his body. They had searched him for ticks and found one that was burrowed into his lower leg. After they got it removed, they figured the fever would subside in a few days. "I've been putting wet cloths on his forehead, just like you told me," said Sister Dibble. "But he has gotten worse. Is he going to be all right?" "I'm not sure how long this illness lasts. I know President Young got over his mountain fever, but I've heard that some who have come down with it haven't survived." "Oh, no," Sister Dibble said in despair. "We've come all this way, and he might die just 5 miles short of reaching Zion." "Don't give up hope yet," comforted Aunt Lucy. She tried to think. What were they going to do? What were they doing wrong? "Do you think we could have missed a tick?" she finally said. "I don't know. Let's look," said Sister Dibble. "I'll start at the bottom, and you start at the top." Brother Dibble was quite a large man for being in his 80s, and it was no small task to hold him still as they systematically searched his body. "I found one," Aunt Lucy cried after a minute or two of searching. "It's here, right under his arm." "Now, how did that little beggar crawl that far?" She showed Sister Dibble the small reddish-black bump near the top of his ribs. "It looks like it's in pretty deep. I'll get my knife, and we'll take care of this unwanted trespasser straightway." As she fumbled in her satchel, Brother Dibble suddenly rose up on one elbow and became very calm. His words became clear. "I can see the valley, Dorothy," he said, pointing. "What?" said Sister Dibble, noticing the faraway look in his eyes. "I can see the valley. It is so beautiful." His eyes started to dart left to right. "It's green and wide and surrounded by rugged snow-capped mountains. There are creeks and canals running through it. There are trees of every kind and flowers of every hue, reds, yellows, pinks, purples. There are hundreds of acres of crops and grazing animals and fields as far as my eye can see." "How can you see the valley, Samson?" questioned Sister Dibble. "You've been blind since your birth." She looked at Aunt Lucy in wonder and then turned her attention back to her husband, deciding to encourage him to go on. "What else do you see, Samson?" "I see the most magnificent temple in the center of the valley. It has many spires that reach up to the sky, and it is sparkling brightly in the sun. And there are happy people everywhere, smiling and waving at me to come join them. I want to go there, Dorothy. I do," he said. Then he lay back down on his pillow, exhausted. Tears streamed down Sister Dibble's cheeks. Aunt Lucy hated to break up this tender moment, but knew she needed to proceed. Hold his arm out of the way so I can get the tick out," she said, as she rolled him over on his side again. Sister Dibble moved her husband's arm and held it so he wouldn't flail it around. Lucy carefully cut across the top of the bump. Brother Dibble didn't react to the pain, if there was any. So far, so good, Aunt Lucy thought. She then cut across it in the other direction, and she took the point of the knife and opened it up a little bit. There was some brandy in her bag, so she poured it right a little into the cut. Brother Dibble definitely felt this and groaned loudly, but he didn't try to get away from his wife. Lucy took a deep breath, placed her thumb on either side of the bump, and pushed it with as much pressure as she dared. Brother Dibble stiffened, but didn't cry out. The contents of the sore poured out, along with the tiny 8-legged culprit. "I got him," Sister Lucy said triumphantly, as she threw the tick on the tent floor and ground it into the dirt with her shoe. "That's wonderful," Sister Dibble laughed in relief. Samson, we got the tick out. You're going to start feeling better now." She tried to move his arm back, but it was suddenly very heavy. She nudged him to see if he would help. He didn't respond. Sister Dibble looked closer. "Sister Whittier," she said with a shaky voice, "Samson's not moving." Lucy tried to turn him back from his side position. He was noticeably more difficult to move than before. "Oh, my," she said. "Is he dead?" Sister Dibble asked fearfully. Aunt Lucy was horror-struck. She looked into his staring eyes. and could see there was no life there. "I'm so sorry, Sister Dibble," she said, putting her arms around her. "I thought we could save him." Lucy was now in tears. "It is so sad that he won't get to enter the valley tomorrow. All this way for nothing." Sister Dibble pulled back. "Don't think like that, Sister Whittier," she said. Then she smiled, realizing something. "You know what? He did get to enter the valley before any of the rest of us. He got to see it in a vision, just like it will look in the future when the temple is finished. He finally got to see something in his long life of darkness. He was such a kind and gentle man. I'll miss him very much, but we had many golden years together, and I will have the memory of this sacred night with me until I leave this mortal sphere to join him. Just think, he no longer has any infirmities. They have been left behind with his physical body. He can now see with his spiritual eyes. That is the comfort that will sustain me." "God bless you, Sister Dibble," Lucy said, giving her another hug. "You're a strong and faithful woman. I'll let President Pinkerton know about your husband's death so he can have some men move him out of your tent." She started to gather up her things when Sister Dibble touched her arm. "Sister Whittier, could you possibly wait to tell him? It's only a few hours till morning." "I don't want Captain Pinkerton to be awakened. I'm sure he is very tired and needs his sleep. I want to spend these last few hours with Samson before they bury him tomorrow. It would mean so much to me." "Are you sure you want to do this? Will you stay with me?" "Of course," Lucy heard herself say. Aunt Lucy lay under the quilt Sister Dibble gave her and wrestled with her thoughts. She was only a few feet away from the Dibbles. She could hear sniffles and sobs from Sister Dibble. She felt so badly for her. She checked John's pocket watch. It showed 3:30. It had been an hour since she had lain down. She wasn't afraid of being so close to a dead person, but it did cause her to recall the experience she had when John died. She knew how Sister Dibble felt, deeply saddened, lost, and alone. Aunt Lucy began to pray, and suddenly it felt like a warm light was falling over her. She became calm. It was the Spirit bearing witness that Brother Dibble was free and happy, and her husband John was also happy and contented. She thanked Heavenly Father for his witness and prayed for Sister Dibble. What could she do to make her burden lighter? She tried to think of all the possibilities and then waited for an answer. At 4:15, she checked John's pocket watch again. She hadn't slept yet. Her thoughts then shifted from heavenly matters to her own problems. She began to feel tense. How was she going to break the news about Brother Dibble to everyone? It would throw such a damper on everyone's happy anticipation of arriving in the valley. Sadness would douse any joy the saints might awaken with. The first thing she had to do was tell Captain Pinkerton about the situation. After another hour dragged by, she knew it was time to deliver the news. She tiptoed quietly to the tent door, so as not to awaken Sister Dibble, who had finally fallen asleep. She stepped outside into the camp circle. Her breath blew out clouds of white. She pulled her woolen shawl closer. The sun was about to peek over the top of the mountains. She hoped this would happen soon because it was freezing outside. The camp was vacant except for a few teamsters who were rounding up the cattle. As she made her way toward Captain Pinkerton's tent, she was surprised to see Captain MacArthur conversing with him there. "Good morning, Sister Whittier," the captains said together. "Captains, I'm very sorry to bring you some sad news this morning, but Brother Dibble died from his mountain fever in the middle of the night." "Oh, that is sad news," said Captain MacArthur, seeming to ponder the ramifications of the event. Then his agitation took over. "The saints are so looking forward to this happy day, and now our entrance into the valley will have to be delayed a couple of hours for a sad funeral service and a burial. This couldn't have happened at a worse time." "Captain MacArthur, may I make a suggestion?" ventured Captain Pinkerton. "I know it is policy to bury the dead immediately on the trail, but since we are so close to the valley, can't we put Brother Dibble's body in the back of his wagon and take him into the city on schedule and let him be buried there in the Pioneer Cemetery?" "That is not a bad idea, Captain," said MacArthur. "We could have a nice service for him in a couple of days, Aunt Lucy interjected brightly. That way, he would be buried closer to Sister Dibble, who needs this tender mercy in her life right now. This is a direct answer to my prayers, Captain. Please say yes. Do you think it will be all right with Sister Dibble? MacArthur answered. I'm positive, Aunt Lucy assured him. She will be overjoyed to know her husband will be buried in the valley instead of here in this canyon somewhere. Let's get to work then, Captain Pinkerton, said MacArthur. You can put his body in the wagon before anyone even gets up for the day. We won't make a general announcement to the company. The word will spread fast enough, and the blow won't affect everyone at once. Let me tell the news to Sister Dibble first, said Aunt Lucy. We'll come to her tent in 5 minutes, said Captain MacArthur. When Aunt Lucy re-entered the Dibble tent, she found Sister Dibble folding her quilts and blankets. How are you doing this morning, Sister Dibble? I'm doing quite well, actually. Thank you for staying with me last night. I was more than happy to do it, Lucy said, giving her a hug. It was actually a rather spiritual experience. I felt the same way. I just know everything will work out and be for my best good. Sister Dibble, she paused, I have what I hope is just a little bit of good news for you at this sad time. I have just spoken to Captain MacArthur and Pinkerton, and they have decided that they will allow you to take Samson's body into the valley in your wagon. Oh, Sister Whittier, that is extraordinary, she said, hugging her tightly. They are not going to make a general announcement to the company about Samson's death, so only a few will learn of his death before we get there. I think that will be best, agreed Sister Dibble. I don't want to burden anyone with my sorrow today. I'm just so happy that Samson gets to enter the valley with me. You can ride in the wagon with him if you'd like. No. Samson and I walked the whole way until he was stricken with his fever, and even then I walked behind the wagon to keep an eye on him. I am determined to walk the last 5 miles into the valley so I can say that I walked every step of the way to Zion. You are an extraordinary pioneer, Sister Dibble, Lucy said. And you are an extraordinary friend, replied Sister Dibble. When the sisters got up that morning, they hadn't even noticed that Aunt Lucy wasn't working alongside them. They assumed she was outside doing something in the wagon. They searched through their bags to find their best clothes to put on for their entrance into the city. Most everything they had was in pretty sad shape, especially their shoes, which had holes in the soles or had torn seams. Some were held together with strips of cloth. The sisters all wanted to look their best, but would have to be satisfied to fix their hair neatly and wash their faces and ears thoroughly. When Aunt Lucy re-entered the tent, Eleanor greeted her. There you are, Aunt Lucy. We're almost ready. Where have you been? I'll tell you later when we get on the trail, but for now, you might just say, I've been to heaven and back. That's the end of chapter 44. One last chapter, chapter 45, and I'll read that tomorrow. Over and out.